Graham, Kyle, are you ready for part 2 of our Mafia review?
No.
Yeah.
Joining us now is the one and only Bori, who assisted in moderating this game alongside Poteet. How's it going, Bori?
Good. Thanks for having me. I feel very privileged and elite to get to be on the podcast.
Well, it is a Hey Trainer podcast, so it's very exclusive. You're one of only. You're reaching out to dozens of
There's
people,
dozens of us.
possibly.
I think dozens might even be a stretch.
Don't strike me down like that. You're hurting my feelings.
Multiple dozens is at least 24.
We might have that many unique listeners.
Yes,
Mhm.
thank you.
All right, so it's time to do grades. We're going to be assigning letter grades A to F. We're not going to do pluses and minuses in most cases unless it seems really necessary. And just want to preface this by saying, we love the community.
Promise.
If you had a bad game, doesn't mean we don't want to play with you anymore. Doesn't mean that we think you're not worthy or anything like that. But we're gonna call it like it is. So
Try to be as objective as possible.
yes. So don't take it too personally, and then maybe try to think of what could you have done better if this was not your game. All right. So we're gonna go through the town first, and we're gonna go through the corrupt world leaders. We're starting with Raptor Zone. Assess our producer, Graham.
I gave him an A.
Wow.
I
That's
know.
biased
I
as
almost
hell.
I almost didn't want to because it seemed biased, but I gave him an A. But I'm gonna kick it to Bori for more of the discussion on these. So Bori, go ahead.
I also gave him an A, so you can not worry about your bias.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Wow,
Raptor,
okay,
Raptor was easily one of the standout players this game.
do tell. What was so great?
So he didn't make it through super far, which was pretty unsurprising, as pretty much almost everything he said was both correct and logically considered and thought through in a way that you don't often see in these games as a whole. I was really impressed as I was reading his posts as the game was progressing and going back through and rereading them again. I was impressed all over again. It was like a nice Christmas surprise of going, oh, that was as good as I remember it. Oh, wow. Yeah, he was really good. So yeah, Raptor had really strong reads. He backed up all of his points really well, really logically. And yeah, just as the cherry on top, was usually right as well. So everyone play like Raptor, and these games will be a lot better overall.
Can I push back on this A little bit?
Yeah,
Give it to him.
A little bit. So
Try.
I'll try. So never was convinced I was town.
Oh,
Why gotta be so suspicious, my
Yeah.
guy?
I think he did eventually. He didn't push very hard for you, at least from what I remember.
He didn't push very hard at the end, but he did want me to be seared. Or me to prove it again.
yeah.
So that's
I'm going to
one.
unmute myself here so I can push back to Kyle's pushback.
Let me finish my argument now.
No, I'm not going to interrupt you.
Okay. Voted for Epsil Trainer. I don't know.
That was the one dip in his playing, that he was he didn't just vote for Absol Trainer, he actively added to the anti-Absol Trainer argument, which was a shame.
And finally,
which is why it's not an A+.
On his last day, didn't want to put a vote down. I don't believe he voted for JD Koopa. Did you?
I was very clearly anti JD Koopa.
But you didn't want to show it.
These are very
Okay.
weak pushbacks. One, you're right. I was not convinced of your townness the day FTB claimed his stuff about you, but I did the right thing and I questioned you, which no one else did that day, and you answered fine, and I believed you, and I never voted you that day. Never once did I lay a vote on you that day.
Oh,
Just want to say
buddy.
that. Two, I believe earlier in this podcast you said Absol was the right Lynch that day.
Did say that, yes. That's
So I
I think he
jumped
made
on
his own bed, but
you're right, he did.
Oh.
And that day, right, in hindsight, it's going to be hard for me to say, well, I didn't think he was exactly Mafia, but he was such a distraction that day that I wanted him out of the game because I did not want to focus any future days on him.
That's right. That was the one post of yours where I was really annoyed, where you were like, I don't even particularly care whether Absol Trainer is or isn't. I just am sick of reading his stuff and would rather he were
Yes.
gone.
And that I still have those feelings because he would have been a distraction going forward. And the ones who are against him were not going to stop. Awast, Prohawk, Alabrow, Superstar. Anyways. Thanks.
yeah,
Thanks
I'm
for my grade.
nitpicking. You can have your A.
Your Alex last propaganda post was also a really good way of going out, and I thought it was a shame that your ideas about how the tribunal membership worked were just dismissed out of hand pretty much by most of the remaining players, even though that was actually how tribunal membership was determined.
It was
Yeah, he had the curly kills and no one else had. He had Fear the Pika before anyone else had Fear the Pika,
Yeah.
except someone else that I'll be bringing up later.
yes,
But
someone else did
he-
bring up the idea before me.
And he brought up that point earlier that I mentioned where he made it clear to me that Awas's role, as he claimed it didn't fit in with the others, that made him, in my mind, at least an equally good Lynch to JD Koopa that day.
the role names post was fantastic.
Yes, it was on the same level to me as the lowercase t was for Superstar.
Graham, do you have any comments about Raptors' Joan of Arc claim?
Oh yeah, we
Ooh.
didn't mention this. I lied.
Yeah, Lynch all liars.
Yeah, Lynch all liars. I mean, I didn't hate it since he was mentioned in the update. I thought the update was a pretty clear giveaway that if those two players, Churchill and Napoleon, existed, that they'd be on the tribunal. And the fact that he picked a similar or same country, and yeah, it's fine. Wasn't great.
I have a really random tangent. So part of the reason that I thought that Churchill or Napoleon would be Mafia, one of the two, is because I think I had this really strange internal bias going on from having thought about Kingdom Hearts 3 around that time. And the trailer for Kingdom Hearts 3 has these two major characters playing chess, and one's the light side and one's the dark side. Who will win, the light side or the dark side? And that's the preface to the whole game, is like these two major characters talking about that. And I was like, oh, that's what Graham's doing here. Is Churchill, Napoleon,
Wow.
one good guy, one bad guy, like having a little battle of the wits.
Minds. Yeah. That's not what I was doing.
Very good.
I
It's a cool
I
idea,
I believe Superstar from the start. I mean, Poti can tell you, other than day 0, he was always my chosen successor every single day. Since his claim, I kind of connected the dots that he was in the tribunal with me.
What did you think of it, Bori?
I thought it was fine. I can see why he made that choice. I may have made the same sort of choice in his position, given that, yeah, it pretty much gave away that he was a tribunal member. And he came clean about it really early. And it wasn't the sort of thing that would ever really have a negative effect on the town's play, is what I think. Um, and that's what will often differentiate for me whether a lie is acceptable or just really dumb, is that if by making that lie it then gives the town information that is wrong enough that it will meaningfully change certain things, then it was a bad call. But this one I think was fine. I didn't think too much of it, or rather about it.
Let's proceed then to Absol Trainer. He was a very, very big factor those first 2 days. What are you going to give him?
This is one of my ones that I wanted to assign a plus or minus to. So I'm going to assign a plus or minus. I gave him a B+.
So you're hedging.
I gave
Hey,
him
if
an
you
A.
wanna-
Dang, Bori's giving my man's an A out here. What's up with
Hey,
that?
you said you wanted positive vibes. All A
Yep.
podcast.
All right, so if you're getting an A, you gotta tell us what positive effect they had on the game.
Well, I will admit that I'm a bit biased in that I agreed with everything he said regarding meta stuff, and it's the type of things that I would have been saying myself if I were playing in the game. And I agreed with him a lot. But also his day one was pretty much as good a day one as you can have, I think. He was the one who pegged onto Mukau immediately. He also had, I think, most of the corrupt world leaders basically pegged during day 1 and 2. His sort of way of his reads and his process of deduction for them was spot on. He was absolutely right about the mass claim and how positive an effect that would have for the town. And yeah, he went a little bit over the top towards the end of day 2, but I entirely understand why he did it. And even though, well, I think he realized that he was going to get lynched regardless. And I think a very big part of the reason that he did get lynched was out of spite for the previous game. There really, even having gone back and read over the start of the game again, there was not enough there, especially compared to someone like Carolyn, for him to have been the lynch for day 2. And so much of it seemed to be sort of hinging off people like Alabrel, basically just shooting from the hip and wanting him to be a baddie because they wanted to catch him out after the previous game.
This to me was a carbon copy lynch for the most part of town thinking that AT was being too helpful or overanalyzing something in the exact way that Bori here died last game analyzing when I was night killed night 1. It felt the exact same.
Yeah, it felt really similar. And it was particularly annoying that the town kind of hadn't learnt from that experience, that, you know, trying to actually be active and do the work doesn't mean someone is a baddie. And it was just the frustrating thing was that it was exactly the same chain of logic without anyone stopping to think that, well, no, actually, that's not true. There were a good chunk of players who disagreed with it and disagreed with it very vocally, which was really, really good to see, but it wasn't enough in the end. And people kind of piled on in the end just to stop a no lynch from happening.
Yeah, I think the town is good for one of these kind of lynches a game. And I think I have 2 theories about this. One is that there's a lot of big egos and people don't want to get duped by the biggest ego. That's part of it. But then I also have this other thought that there is a residual hereditary, inherited trauma at Hey Trainer. And this trauma stems from American Charizard. Our boy Russian Charizard, once upon a time, was very, very big brain. And he, by blessed luck of the draw, you might say, no, I think he was given those roles, but I think, he was given this bounty of good rolls and enabled him to break the game and talk over people and seem like he was larger than life. And people were so traumatized by having been duped by him in a couple of games that from then on, no one was allowed to talk over everyone else, because that person must be Mafia. And to this day, I think we still have to have one of these lynches per game, because we have internalized, oh no, they're pulling a Russian Charizard.
Okay. Sounds like you want to do a HT Rewind podcast that's just AT's role in each game and see how he played and died.
You mean ACs?
Yeah, sorry. Yes, AC. Yeah. Yes.
That might be our Book of Basketball 2.0 podcast.
First Rewolfable.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to ProHawk.
Yeah. I gave ProHawk an F next.
So did I.
How you guys going to do that?
It's my only F of the game.
Why?
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you right there. He was bred on deduction. He went to school for this. He's got a master's degree in catching werewolves. Explain.
Yeah, Bori, explain.
All right, I'll go first. ProHawk, from pretty much start to finish, was easily the worst player out of every faction in the game. Just about everything he said was wrong. Worse than that, though, just about everything he said was backed with so much ego and arrogance and nothing else. His exchange with Absol Trainer was painful to reread. And most of what he threw out was basically just insults and saying how nobody else could keep up with his big brain plays, which all happened to be wrong as well. Dead wrong. Something that I found really interesting when I was rereading the game, day one, every single Corrupt World leader plus FTP, who may as well count as one because he was playing as one from the start, they were the only ones who brought up any reservations about the name claims, the ones who were like, oh, but we should be a bit careful because maybe it's not how we think it is. Maybe the countries aren't as good as bad as we think they are. Maybe, characters might not be as good as bad as they say they are. Every single one of them brought up something like that, and they were the only ones to bring up something like that, plus ProHawk. ProHawk was the only town member to argue against the claims.
He's a truther.
And even to the end of the game, he insisted that they were pointless and a waste of time, despite the fact that that was how, or if it wasn't the only way that the Corrupt World leaders were tracked down, it was a really big part of how every single one of them was caught. Basically, his play was oversaturated with ego, with not much to back it up, and it was really, really painful to read. Sorry, ProHawk, but please don't do that anymore. I know that you can play a lot better than that, and this game was, just really, really awful.
Yeah, I'll add my 2 cents, and that was, I obviously had a very frustrating round with him on day 3 when he insisted all we have to go by is roll results, so we have to flinch Renfield to see if it checks out without stopping to think about anything I was saying or the faults in what Fear the Pika himself was saying, and
Hmm.
the hypocrisy of saying that you cannot lynch a priest because that role is important, while saying that we could lynch my role, which by both of your admissions was the seer role, the closest to a seer role that the town had. In fact, on May 27th, 2020, ProHawk is quoted as saying Renfield is most definitely not a seer. So,
Yeah, well, you kind of were.
posted age badly.
Age
I-
like milk.
I guess my last thing is he was such a curmudgeon about it that like he didn't like that there wasn't a Mafia team, that he didn't like that there wasn't a true seer. Why didn't he sub out of this game if that's all he's gonna say is things like that? I like.
Yeah,
And
it was just very poor sportsmanshipness.
That's a
He
good way
was
of
just
putting it. Yeah.
he was complaining about everything all game. He was clearly having a terrible time. Um, yes.
And one other thing, in regards to his play, he said early on that he could only protect his ally, and so his protections were telegraphed. He had the ability, as you saw in the flip, to protect literally anybody in the game during wartime for a substantially less amount of aid, and he never chose to.
Yeah, he was
And
a
I
real
don't know why.
priest, and he just didn't
And,
do it.
and he also did not bring up that he knew of a way for a free world leader to mechanically join the tribunal, which seems like it would have been valuable information in some lynches.
I feel like it was just his way of protesting the game. If I had to
Maybe.
guess, I don't know.
He was convinced that Fear the Pika had to be town because he was a seer.
Which, yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
move on to Matty Stacks. Everyone's favorite enigma.
Can I give him 3 separate grades?
No.
Oh, after a lot of debate internally in my head, I settled on a B.
I was leaning that way, and I settled on a C.
Okay, that's yeah. Obviously, I was not. To be honest, I was not choosing between A and B. I was choosing between a B and C. And I went B because another Matty Stacks list delivers.
Well, that's
list.
what I was thinking. Oh, I should probably clarify. I'm not sure if our grades work exactly the same way as your grades in the States, but for me, a C is average. It was fine. It was acceptable.
Yeah.
A B is above average. An A is excellent. D is
Yes.
below average. F is
Failure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for Maddie, I was leaning towards a B as well because his list ended up being right. But when I went back and reread through his post as a block, something that really stuck out to me is that even though he was correct, he never actually helped at all. He'd say this person is the wrong lynch, maybe, or he'd come in especially afterwards and say, I can't believe the last day went the way it did. You guys are idiots. You should have just listened to me. But as the days were actually happening, he didn't contribute anything to argue his points. He didn't actually contribute to the ongoing discussion about why a certain person was or wasn't the right lynch. He just came in afterwards and said, well, I was right. You should have listened to me in the first place. But his stuff during the day was supremely not helpful. He often didn't actually, he didn't seem to be paying that much attention. He was often had forgotten how certain mechanics worked or things that people hadn't said. So it felt like he was very much dipping in and out of the game. He'd made his list at the start of the game going, these are the people who are going to be bad, these are the people who are going to be good, and just kind of held on to that without really playing the game as it was unfolding. Yeah, which was why I settled on a C. He didn't ruin anything. He didn't play particularly badly, but he also didn't really add to the game very much or to his team.
If we could find a way to get Matty Stacks to articulate his positions better,
He'd be
Matty
really
would be,
good.
he'd be one of the best players on the site in some games, it feels like.
What I've wondered though, pretty much for the last however many games, though, is whether Maddie actually has those reasons in his head and just isn't articulating them right, or whether he's just gotten lucky a lot.
Right. Yeah, no, I've wondered that too.
I wouldn't
not
say
sure.
it's either of those necessarily. I think it is that he has found one good way to identify the mafia, and that is by claim order.
Mm.
And it's just so happened that it worked really well in the games that he did it, and it bore out. The evidence did, the results did, that he was right. And the fact that he was the only person triumphing that point, in retrospect, makes it seem like he was maybe doing more than he is.
Yeah, and that's something that Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, well, I was just going to finish by saying that he's not wrong to do that, and these were maybe the best possible games for someone to point those things out. But in other styles of games, that's not going to be as helpful. And he has never articulates things in paragraphs or has follow-up points. He kind of just has this point, and when it's right, it's right. And when that isn't helpful to the argument, he doesn't have other things to contribute. So
Take it or leave
he needs to develop other ways of finding players that are suspicious in order to develop more more sound argument. Yeah, more refined strategies of catching Mafia.
Yeah, I agree. And it's something that came up in Dead Chat at the very end of the game. And Pathicus is very pro Maddie. He thinks Maddie is really great and should be taken seriously more often. And this was something that I think Rax and possibly someone else as well brought up, that he's kind of got the one trick which we remember when it's right, but he also brings up a lot of stuff that isn't. And it's easy to remember the bits that he was right about and dismiss the other stuff because he throws so much stuff at the wall.
I will add that I was disappointed at the end of the game when he was willing. For so much of the game, he was suspicious of Fear the Pika.
Yes.
But when he's on the chopping block,
oh my god!
Hold up a minute.
It's like, end the game. And he's like, whoa, no. We've still got lots of time. Let's really think about this and see whether this is the right call. Oh, dude, you were on him for the whole game.
And to be fair, in many circumstances, it would be right to take all your time and assess everything you could.
Yeah.
But the problem was that Fear the Pika was actually kind of turning some people's minds there at the end. And he was giving him an out.
Especially when Superstar said that he was going to be really busy for the next few in real life days and wouldn't be able to kind of counter argue. It would have been better just to end it there rather than give Fear the Pika more time to kind of twist things to his narrative when there wasn't Superstar there to counter it.
Yeah. Let's move on to our next player. Let's give out a grade for Jellyfisher.
Oh, I give him an incomplete.
Yeah, same.
Poor guy.
But a good incomplete. Like, it was, for what he played, it was like a B. Yeah, it was good. Everything he said was pretty solid. He was playing the right way. It was a shame that he died so early.
I think he would have figured this game out day 5 or 6.
Yeah.
If he was around.
One of these games, we've got to get the priest to nail the night kill, night 1, so that we can't give any incompletes.
Has that ever happened?
No, I don't think it has.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Odds are so low, but it's one of these days.
Got to, right?
It's my turn. Give me their worst.
I gave you an A.
I also gave you an A.
All right, let me push back on you.
You made mistakes too, but on the whole,
I
your
did.
play was good. You were, for me, a lot of what determined the grades I gave was not necessarily the outcome and how right or wrong certain reads were, but the approach taken to the game. And yours and Jeff's and Raptor Zone's approaches were what I think of as the correct way to approach these games as town.
There were three
You,
best by far.
yeah, you were wrong in certain things and didn't always make correct calls, but you were going about things the right way. You were thinking about things. You were actually basing your positions on logic and considering things through all the way, and were willing to change your mind based on the information that was there. Rather than going with what I think of as, the typical lazy town play where people sort of latch on to the most recent, loudest thing and kind of run with that.
Yeah, I think part of my improvement over the last couple of years playing the game has been to keep an open mind the first 3 days of the game and not try to say anything with absolutes, so that when I'm removed from the game, people can't go back and say, Renfield had this hunch, let's follow it. I don't want to ever give any clue that will help the other team. So on the first day, when I thought, maybe Master Mukau isn't such a bad guy, I still kept an open mind. Well, he did initially give me a red flag. We should probably just get that sorted out now if we can't decide on anybody else. And that turned out to be an okay decision, even though I was wrong at the beginning, like you said. And then I also thought Fear the Pika might not be a corrupt world leader, because why would they go in so hard on trying to prove that I was Mafia, when what they were saying should prove actually the opposite? It would be suicide. But as it turned out, I actually didn't have all the information. He had a more complex role, and there would be more inconsistencies that would come out past the time that I was in the game. I also had this one post that I want to bring up that was pretty silly, but I would have been putting work into this theory that free world leaders didn't mean leaders of the free world, but instead it meant that they freed the world. So I had a list of every character and how that they freed somebody in some way. And the ones that didn't fit in this theory were 4 people who were all town. So I immediately ended this theory by saying, I put a lot of analysis into this, but we have to put it aside because the revelation that Napoleon and Churchill are in the game hurts the credibility of the thought exercise. So even though I had put all this work into something, I was still in the early stages of the game, and I was like, well, I have to throw this out, even though I worked on it. So all of that is to say that I think I've improved by putting my ego aside, which is ironic given how I played the third day of the game. But I think that is what I would attribute my good play to during this game, is being willing to admit that I was wrong, while also still having convictions like, I'm not going to go down this day. It would have been easy to just say, like ProHawk said, well, if you're so town, then maybe you should go down and you should just roll over. That's what a town player would do.
No.
When I think, but that's
I don't
not,
like that line of thinking.
No.
I hate it. I hate it so much.
It's related to Awas' line of thought in the same, or like either a day before or after, where he said, well, let's kill Alabrel to verify the results of his role. That's just a waste.
Yep.
Agree.
Yep. Yeah, and I was going to bring up that actually that was one of the, in this meta, very impressive things about your game is that you managed to be on the chopping block with especially with, someone claiming to have seared a bad ability and you manage to not get lynched.
Well, I think I have to extend an olive branch to Raptor Zone for that one, because I don't think if he hadn't asked me about the questions that he did, that I would have made it out alive. Yeah, I think
Raptor
it was
Zone was big in that.
even though he didn't at any one point think I was down. Just gonna say it again. He asked the right questions that enabled me to prove my innocence. So
Which is a very
his critical
town thing
thinking,
to do.
right?
Yep.
Yes. He thought critically about it. He, as one might put it, socially deduced that there might have been other circumstances other than a cut or dry is he Mafia based on someone's roll result. So maybe I can give you an honorary doctorate, Alex, even though you didn't go to the school. You weren't born in it. You weren't bred in it.
I will, however, bring up something I just remembered because I'm reading through your posts, is that you were initially suspicious of Fear the Picker, but on day 3, after his sort of pushing for you, he then moved to town. No question in my mind.
Yeah. I did think that there was no way he would do that, but I guess like because everyone was independent, it didn't cross my mind that there could be a more complex independent than a corrupt world leader already was. So,
are you saying I'm a simple person?
I'm just saying that 5 independents is a lot. All right. Next on the list is Superstar.
Ooh, B. Nice B. And honestly, 85% of this B is on the back of the FTP file.
He's another one I had real trouble with, and every 10 minutes I change my mind about B or C because he was so high variance. He had that was, a phenomenally good play. He also made some phenomenally bad plays. All of day 2, for example.
He was kind of the linchpin of the Absol trainer lynch.
Yep. But when I went to the bathroom just before while you guys were recording the first part, I initially had him as a B, but I revised him down to a C specifically because of the Weiss lynch. Because both, him and Rax had access to the tribunal chat. They saw exactly what had been written. And even if Rax thought messed up and thought that was actually Weiss, Superstar should have caught that it wasn't. That was a really, really huge misplay for him to confirm Rax's suspicion and vote for Weiss when it should have been really obvious to him that it wasn't.
It cannot be understated. He not only said, like, that's what Weiss would have done, right? Wink, wink. He also ended by saying, like, go get the other independent, you guys.
Yeah,
it was
like
mad.
So over the top.
Yeah, it was, there is no, I have been trying to be better about, going hard on people for making mistakes because, the players in the game don't have perfect information. It's easy to judge from the outside. But this is one situation where I will uncompromisingly say that if there is one thing that both of them should have gotten from that transcript is that whoever it was not Weiss.
Or at the very least, just don't take it at face value. Like you don't even need to necessarily say this isn't Weiss. Just don't even talk about it. Don't mention like, oh, we think the infiltrator's Weiss. Like, just approach that the next day. Something.
In his defense, I'll say that he was the last the last tribunal member, and so maybe he would have not wanted to come forward and dispute it too much because he wanted to remain hidden. But that is debunked when he ends up voting for Weiss on Ice himself. So it was more like he was being quietly complicit.
Yeah. Very high variance play. So I settled on average. it averaged out to average, I would say. But he made some really great plays in there. And I don't know whether he was doing this on purpose or whether it was unintentional, but I noticed that his posting style has been very different to previous games, and it feels like he's deliberately trying to tone down the
He's being nicer.
aggressiveness and the shit talking. Yeah, he's been a lot nicer. It seems like he's really trying to think things through and make considered plays rather than going off his gut, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, and I don't think we can go without saying that how many other players would have even thought to consider someone's speech patterns and uncovering who that was?
Not many.
Yeah, I was
let alone be able
impressive.
to do it. But who else would have been like, how am I going to figure out who this guy is? Well, I'll look up how they spelled certain words. Wouldn't have crossed most people's minds.
And one of those being FTP.
Yeah. Yeah, if there's a Scummie award for just play of the game, or play of the year, I would give it that. It was really impressive. Especially as before that, I don't think Superstar had been particularly suspicious of Fear the Picker at all. And so it was very good.
What about Atarian?
Yeah. Oh, before we move on from Superstar though, I do want to say that I was a bit unimpressed with his last day, just from not necessarily gameplay, but from a spirit of the game standpoint. The crack he made about Darth Picker and, FTP being, I think it was, this is why Darth Picker is the way he is, because you're such a, yeah, I thought that was really crossing a line. He apologized for it straight away, but that was really not cool. And also, I was initially willing to kind of give him a pass on the almost game-breaking thing of posting his role almost verbatim, because I assumed that he'd forgotten, or that it was, he was stressed and overwhelmed at work, and so just kind of did it without really thinking it through. But post-game, he said that he had considered the possibility that mod killing him would win the game for the town. And so with that context, I think that was a really dirty play, and I'm not at all impressed with it. And I really hope we don't see any more of that from anyone.
It is dubious at best, but since there was no precedent, I'm willing to forgive.
No precedent.
Yeah.
Wasn't in the rules, and it does feel like
Yep.
this late into a game when there's and that is since there was 6 people left, and it was essentially down to him or the other. Ideally, I mean, it feels like that situation's not going to come up a lot, where there's 2 people left. One is the last anti-town, and one, yeah.
No, but I really dislike just the people even having the thought of trying to manipulate the game rules to get an advantage, and to sort of try and see how far they can push the envelope before it counts as cheating.
Yeah, as someone who has tried to push the envelope, maybe I have a little more sympathy.
Superstar clause incoming.
We need to get a clause for every player in here. Where's your clause, Boutique? You got to earn one this game.
Okay. I'll try to
Please
break
don't. Please don't.
I'm just going to I'm going to quote everything you send me.
Banned from A Trainer.
You wouldn't mod kill a friend.
Imagine trying to do the podcast with you banned from A Trainer.
I could watch every game as a third-party observer. All right, who's next?
We're doing Atarian.
Oh, correct. I just have a nice middle of the pack C.
Same here. I had to go back and reread every one of his posts, because I just had
Don't remember him.
pretty much no impression of him through the game, and that was more or less backed up by his posts. It was pretty unremarkable. It was fine. Nothing stood out in either direction. In fact, I can't even remember what I read 2 hours ago of what he was saying in the game. Yeah,
And
he was
reading it
fine.
today myself, he had some good hunches in a couple places, and in others, it just seemed like he didn't know the right direction to go in. So he was present and frustrated, and sometimes that's what you are. I think that the best case for his C or better is the play he made at the end of the game, putting
Yeah.
Superstar and Rax in the chat with his ability. I thought that was pretty heads up.
Good.
Oh, there was that. I remember now. There was that strange post and line of play he took early on in the game, where he was arguing that that all of the other vanilla claims were suspect
Oh, yeah, I
because
remember that too now.
because nobody but him should be able to gain a peacetime and a wartime ability because that would be really broken. Which just it seemed I couldn't tell whether he was lying about his ability worked, or whether he just didn't think that it was possible that other abilities could work in the same way as his. That was something that stuck out during the game as a strange sort of thing to have happened.
Let's move on to Weiss on Ice.
Oh, another middle of the pack.
Yeah,
See.
same. See here as well. Rereading his posts, because Jeff sent me his list of grades and he gave Weiss a B for his play. He thought that he played the vanilla game really well.
I would
But
also have
when-
given him a B. I think this is the one I disagree with you guys on most.
Well, I was leaning that way, and then I went back and read over his play, and I noticed that again he was there, and he made a lot of comments, but he didn't actually make any arguments really. He'd ask questions and he'd make observations, but he never actually really pushed for or against anybody who was under discussion. And he'd kind of just throw down his vote wherever all the other votes were. So it was even hard to tell when I was reading through his posts where the days started and ended, because there was not much actual substance from him weighing up one way or the other as far as any of the players went. It was all very kind of non-confrontational, and I felt like for him to have gotten a better grade, particularly as a vanilla, he needed to actually engage more.
He felt to me a lot like we were saying earlier about JD Koopa in most games, is just kind of like a pleasant guy who's just there and he's going along with whatever everybody's talking about. That's what he reminded me a lot of in this game.
I think he had, like you said, good observations. I think he had some of the best observations this game, actually. Like, he would notice minute details about interactions and be the first to point them out. One of them actually was about my role specifically, and I was kind of worried that it would help get me lynched. But his case against Fear the Pika on day 6, on the day that he got lynched, was, I thought, really good until, what was his critical error? He said something, and I was like, there's no coming back from that.
Yeah, he did. And in fact, that was one where Jeff screenshotted it to me as it happened and was like, this is going to get him lynched.
Yeah, it was definitely like a turning point. Everyone knew it. I can't remember what it was offhand, though.
When
He wanted wartime.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, he asked for wartime.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah.
I think the game might have actually ended were it not for that.
Yeah. Yeah, if we were doing plus or minuses, I'd give him either a C plus or a B minus. Like, he was sort of a little bit better than the other Cs, I would say, but not better enough for me to have gone up a whole grade.
Yeah, he's. I mean, I have mine technically tiered. He's the top of my C's for
Yeah.
what it's worth.
I think that he's in a group of players who've been around not quite long enough to be considered a veteran, but long enough that they've got some games under their belt. Where I'd say like the next thing I want to see from them, other people might be like Matty Stacks or T Cards or JD Koopa. Like, what is your lynch? Like, what is your defining moment where you got someone correctly lynched as Mafia? And so I don't think he has that yet.
No.
I
It's
don't
kind of
think I
like
have
a
that.
like a coming of age event. You must a trial you must overcome.
Yeah.
I
Let's
don't think
move
I
on.
have that.
You don't think you do?
No.
Dude, your entire day 2 of
Oh, wait. Never mind. The Lord of the
your
Rings
lie.
game.
No, your Wolfric. Your
Yeah.
DDoS game was good too.
Anyway,
You have
moving on.
lots of things. What are you talking about?
I was like, I've not been right about Mafia. I don't usually pick the Mafia.
You're
Anyway,
being
moving
modest.
on.
Yeah.
How about rookie Johnny Bones?
Johnny Bones. Get this. I gave Johnny Bones a B.
So did I.
Okay,
I thought
I
he
would have
did.
flip flopped there. I probably would have given him a C.
I thought it's partly influenced by the fact that it is his very first game.
Yeah, I gave him a little. He's definitely graded on a curve for me.
Yeah. I thought for a first timer, he did really well. And for a first timer, he just kind of cut through the problems with the meta instantly. And I really liked that. And I thought it was really funny.
Wasn't afraid to mix it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he had a good attitude about all of it, and he rolled with the punches. I don't think he necessarily made many good reads. I can't think of a.
No.
I can't think of
they were
a
they
great
were
read either.
they were mixed. He thought Superstar was bad.
Yeah, I think he spent most of the game preoccupied with Superstar, Darth Pika,
Yeah.
and Pro Hawk.
Which they patched up eventually.
Yeah.
Until Superstar decided to get him killed. But yeah.
What I was particularly impressed by is that he wasn't afraid to push back on lynches that he didn't think had enough evidence. He was one of the main people arguing against the Absol trainer lynch and pointing out the lack of sort of concrete reason behind it. Same with you, I think. Kyle, I think he was also not on board with lynching you. Quite a few times he went against the kind of groupthink mentality, which is really uncommon for somebody who's just come in.
True. Fair points. Happy to see he signed up for my game.
Yeah.
Welcome edition. Yeah, we'll take him.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, again, going by my sort of attitude of it's the approach to the game that matters more than sort of absolute right or wrongness. I thought he approached it the right way, even if his reads weren't all great.
What did you guys think about Alabrel and Rax?
Gave a C.
To both of them?
To both, yes.
They were a couple of my hardest ones to grade because both of them, just like Superstar, were really high variance. Alabrel, in the time that he played, his day one was really good. And then as soon as you can actually see the moment in the thread where he dive bombs. You can see the moment where he's sick of Absol Trainer. He doesn't care anymore. He doesn't want to deal with him. And from then on, he's gung-ho anti-Absol Trainer. And kind of Alabrel has this... The biggest flaw in his playing is that he kind of gets tunnel vision-y once he's pissed off. And...
Kinda. He gets super...
Yeah. And interestingly enough, it's interesting that Rax replaced him because Rax, that's probably the biggest flaw in their playing recently as well, where not when they get emotional, but when they've they think that they've hooked onto the right thing, they will also get a bit tunnel visiony and sort of won't really change their minds with new evidence. And so yeah, Alabrel, good day 1, good Carolate kill, bad day 2. So it's this kind of U-shaped play, whereas Rax came in well. I remember thinking at the time that Rax replacing Alabrel was probably one of the major things that resulted in Renfield not getting lynched, because Alabrel had been very anti-Renfield and had started that push, but Rax kind of put the brakes on that and was going, hold on, why? And not really kind of letting that take off the way that I think it would have had Alabrel still been there. So yeah, Rax started out quite strong and sort of quite moderate, but then sort of nosedived towards the end, where they fell into the trap of kind of believing at face value what was in the tribunal chat. And then even when Weiss brought up the evidence in their favor, saying that they were the first person to claim vanilla, this and that, Rax went, oh, yeah, that makes me more inclined to believe you, but no, I still want to vote for you. And so, yeah, I had real trouble grading them on a whole, and I'd put them probably at overall, as individually and overall, at like a C- or a D+, somewhere in that kind of range. Where I think overall it was not as good as it could have been, even to bring them up to the level of the other Cs.
Yeah, I don't have more to add. Although I will say that we talked about Alabrel's attitude in the last podcast, and he had a good excuse to leave the game this time around.
Yeah.
So it was probably good for him to clear his head.
Yeah, definitely.
And just wasn't the right place to be playing
job.
Mafia. But he had one good shot, and all of his other reads I think were bad. So I think he was also salty.
Yeah.
Let's go on to, or down the list here, Darth Pika. I'll start by saying Darth Pika also said, he quoted ProHawk, and the entirety of his post was just that quote. Renfield is definitely not a suit. So
I gave Darth Pika a D.
I also gave him a D.
Can I push back?
However,
oh yeah,
no one was more anti Fear the Pika this game.
Yeah,
that's how he earned his D.
Exactly.
And he was town voice of reason on that last day
I know.
After Superstar lost his cool and started losing control of the ship a little bit. Who else would reach out and fix that rudder but Taco Cat?
Yep. Darth Pika again had a U-shaped trajectory to his play, where his day 1 was actually good. He was on to Fear the Pika's bullshit from the start. And his day 7 was good. It was just in between. There was a lot of not good.
I agree wholeheartedly with this.
I would contrast his middle play with Weiss's, whereas Weiss had really great vanilla play. I think Darth Pika struggled with what to do and even offered himself up like, I've got nothing to contribute. Let's just lynch me at one point.
Which does nothing, by the way.
Yeah.
I honestly have nothing more.
Yeah.
That's fair.
He wasn't as bad as he has been in other games. And his high points were really good. So let's have more of that. We know that
if he would have had one more day, like his day 1 or day 7, he probably would have gotten a C.
Yeah. Yep.
Last town member was that fake snake.
I gave him a big old B.
So did I.
All right.
Yeah. he died early, but what he contributed before he died was all solid.
Kyle, you look shocked.
Yeah, I thought it was really bizarre when he admitted to being a tribunal member that quickly. I thought it was like,
I forgot about
you
that.
trying to get killed?
Hang
Well,
I was going to step in
Let
for
me
1
find
second
that.
because this is in my end of pod notes. I don't think he ever said he was on
No.
the tribunal. I think it was
Yeah,
just
I don't
painfully
think-
obvious because he claimed Gandhi.
It was obvious because he claimed Gandhi and
Yep.
because his ability was a mirror of jellyfishers.
Yes, because he ability claimed. No one brought that up that day, by the way. That because I thought
No,
it was
he-
odd that day.
He admitted to like saying he knew how the tribunal worked. He used like the pronoun we when he talked about the tribunal.
Oh, I guess
Well, Kyle
I
just
guess I,
cut out.
I
Did
don't.
he?
I guess I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember him.
Yeah.
I don't remember him outright saying like, "Hey, I'm on the tribunal."
I remember
It's
putting my
like-
phone down when I read it and being like, "What?" So maybe I misread it, but I'm pretty sure he said "we the tribunal," like not "we the tribunal," but he spoke in the tribunal in terms of "we."
Let's see here.
Yeah, I'm reading through his stuff as we speak. I'm not finding anything.
Now, I don't think that necessarily even if that is the case, which I think it is. I think that was
spoke-
like a terrible play because it like cleared up more information for how it worked for the rest of us who weren't on it.
He uses we a lot kind of to refer to the town as a whole.
I do enjoy the he had a post where he mentioned like his 4 strongest reads, and the first 3 were all gold.
Yeah.
But the last one was wrong. I think it was Koopa, but let's see here. He was on CRL. He was on CRL
yeah,
CRL.
I don't
Link.
see anything where he implies that he's on the tribunal. On the other
No
hand,
mistake.
I forgot to talk about this with Alabrel, but Alabrel telegraphed it. He made it, I actually messaged Graham about it during the game.
He towed the line.
He towed the line so much. He made it really obvious in tribunal chat who he was. And then during the game, he was also not really trying to hide it at all that he was on the tribunal, which was particularly a bad call because by that point, that was after day 2 when there was a new person on the tribunal, which was a corrupt world leader, and Carolyn ended up being lynched, but it was not a good call to make his identity so obvious.
Yeah, on day 2, when AT was under pressure, TFS listed people I trust most currently, and I'm not going to share all the information on each of them, but his was 1 AT, even though AT was in the line of fire, 2 Weiss, 3 Raptor Zone, and then 4 was Koopa. But still, the first 3 to have AT, Weiss, and Zone all on day 2 feels pretty good. So yeah.
Are you ready for co-op world leaders?
I am ready
Yeah.
for corrupt world leaders. Let's talk about them.
Before we move on to corrupt world leaders, note the overall relatively high marks of the town compared to previous games.
Yes.
It was mostly C's, B's, and A's with only one.
Pika and Prohawk.
Yep. So well done, town.
Yeah, I think
Did
this
good.
might have been. When was the last time Town played this well?
Lord of the Rings.
That is a fever dream for me. I did not play long in that game.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, that was 2 years ago. No, 1 year ago.
Oh my gosh.
1 year ago. Exactly. Almost.
Let's go to Corlete then. CRL88T.
Gave her a D.
I also gave her a D. I'm amazed at how well our marks are matching up, by the way.
I know, this is weird.
Did
We
she
did not
like
discuss
extend really hard for her kills or?
No, she just had a bad claim, and
Yeah.
then it led to her getting votes, and
She slipped up early. She said that she posted something that she didn't mean to. It was something that she was kind of thinking about.
yes, tell me
She
about that.
Yeah, and so yeah, she set up her claim poorly and then leaned into it poorly. Amazingly, it almost worked out. People were willing to give her credit for coming clean as Vlad the Impaler.
Very strange.
Yeah, it was yeah, in fact, that was on day 2, wasn't it?
Yes, she admitted
Yes.
to being Vladimir
Ah,
player,
yeah,
Taylor, and they still lynched
and then
18.
yeah, awful. Yeah, she didn't do great. She knows she didn't do great. But it wasn't the worst play I've ever seen.
Yeah, it could have been worse.
Then what about Master Moo Cow?
Honestly, I want to give him incomplete. If you make me pick, I'm giving him an F.
I gave him a D, but a low D. It could have been an F pretty easily. It was a really bad day 1.
I feel like he when he saw just how his claim was received, he was like, "I'll see myself out."
I kind of did feel like that, yeah.
And for that reason, I feel like it wasn't like an F-worthy claim, and all he did was
Yeah.
claim. So I feel like it was like a D-worthy claim, and all he did was claim. So I would give him like a D.
Yeah, I might be just a little biased because I didn't want a corrupt leader
Yeah.
on night 1 or day 1, but it's still, yeah. There wasn't really much good to parse from it. I mean, like you said, D claim. Like the best part of his claim was claiming he was Obama. Every other part about his claim
Yeah, was really bad. And
saying that it was a pet role because he was trying to find Crobat 42 in that fake claim that one time, so maybe I gave it to him tongue in cheek.
I think mentioning Osama at all was a pretty bad play as well, because I can
That was
see
so
why he was
knowledge.
doing it. I think he was trying to set it up so that if Osama was ever revealed, that would sort of give legitimacy to his claim. But I think it was pretty easy to see through that he was actually Osama and trying to sort of construct a town claim around that.
Yeah.
Plus, he tried to jump on Jeff, and Jeff was not having any of that and pushed back equally and better.
Yep.
What about A-Boss?
Oh, I went back and forth. I ended on a very low C.
I gave him a D,
But
a high-ish D. It was.
What do you think he meant by him saying I got lost because I got Absol Trainer lynched and I would do it again? Did he actually get Absol Trainer lynched, and did anyone lynch him for that reason?
No,
not really.
Neither.
Yeah,
of those
I was really confused by that statement. I thought maybe I missed something.
No, the main reason for him getting lynched was mentioning that he had an ability that cost 17 aid.
Yeah, and why would you be truthful about that?
I have no idea.
Like, I thought about this at the time. I was like, well, someone's going to ask him to prove it. But even if that's the case, you could say, like, I got roll blocked. Or you could even make something up. Like, if you wanted to get creative and take a risk, like, I had my aid depleted or stolen. Like, there's a roll out there that can steal your aid or, like, deplete your aid.
He had an ability or a modified version of that ability that cost 10. So I don't know why he didn't just say that.
Just claim the 10.
Yeah.
Oh, that's even more perplexing.
Yeah.
Just trying to be too honest, I guess. In all fairness, though, in his defense, during the couple days he was alive before that, he got a little bit of attention, but there's never any real heat on him. Like, he's doing an okay job blending in.
Also, he was one of the most vehemently against claiming. He was like, to be honest, I haven't claimed yet because I think it's stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think that all of the corrupt world leaders had a really bad day one, except for JD. I think JD started off
JD.
fine. But Carolyn, Awost, and Master Mukau, I think from day one I was like, oh, these guys are screwed. They've really messed up with how they've approached this first day. And yeah, I think had in the sort of, well, I guess it didn't matter because they all went down so quickly. But I think had there been any doubt in the later parts of the game, it would have been really easy to peg them from the way that they responded to various events during day one. And yeah, I think Awost was the worst there, where his thing about we should claim country rather than name was just really bizarre and really suspicious.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're trying to say that the town's going to gain from getting country instead of name.
Yeah. Yeah, I think had he not made that slip up with his aid ability thing, I think he would have started copping heat once the more obvious corrupt world leaders were out of the way because of that stuff.
He was probably good another day or two, but yeah.
His claim also wasn't very good.
We've spoken about him a little bit, but how do you feel about JD Koopa?
This was tough for me because JD Koopa really impressed me early.
Me too.
In the days 1, 2, some of 3. But then I gave him a C.
I also gave him a C.
And most of that's based off of his name claim, which is a recurring theme here.
Can we take a quick sidebar for a history lesson? Because this is entirely irrelevant, but history is interesting. And so I'm Hungarian, right? Khrushchev is probably one of the most loathed people in recent history in Russia, from anywhere in Hungary. So I don't know how well known outside of Hungary the 1956 revolution is, but it's sort of probably the biggest kind of day of mourning in Hungary. It's kind of like Anzac Day here, but a lot sadder. Basically, when Khrushchev was doing all of his anti-Stalin stuff, Hungary was like, okay, cool. Can we have the Russians out now? We want you guys gone. And there was a revolution and an uprising, and Khrushchev stomped on it, and thousands of civilians were just like gunned down by tanks and Russian soldiers. And that event is sort of responsible for most of the Hungarians living outside of Hungary these days. There was a massive wave of emigration after that. So yeah, while I can see why JD Cooper picked him as the nice Russian, he was not a nice Russian. He was awful, and I think people should know that.
Since we're talking about claims so much with the corrupt world leaders, I think it might be easy for a listener to think like, well, you need to give them more help. But I think that my response to that would be, well, they needed to have more balls, because in just the last game or 2 games ago now, was the one where I was the first person to claim of anybody, and I claimed Miller, not knowing there wouldn't be another Miller, right? So you can get away with just saying a name and hoping it sticks. They're like, you lose the game if you're wrong right there, but if you're the first person to claim and no one else claims it, you're probably not losing for a long time. So
high risk, high reward.
Yep.
I just think that maybe people need to think about taking more risks when you're in a position like that.
Yeah, I think if a corrupt world leader would have claimed like some of the names we discussed earlier, like a JFK or Peter the Great or something like that on day one, like in the top like 6 players, they might win.
Yeah, I agree. And last game, I think that was one of the things that worked best for Jeff, was that he didn't pussyfoot around with his claim. He didn't argue against it. He just made something up and then rolled with it. And if it came into question, he made up more shit. And it worked. I think what's at least in our meta, much more likely to catch people out is the hesitating, the arguing about whether it's worth doing or not. I think people are starting to clue into that being a red flag, because we've had a set of games previously where Mafia have sort of had safe claims. And so I think people are not as comfortable with having to lie about something like that, where they can be easily sort of disproven if it turns out that they picked wrong.
Mm-hmm.
All that remains is Fear the Pika.
Consult's list, I gave him a C.
I also gave him a C.
Of course you did. There's this perfect knowledge on the perch, Kyle. He was fine.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was a little better than a C, but I do think that he made some.
The game could have been over on day 4.
Some unforced errors.
Yeah.
The main reason that I gave him a C, well, he had his first couple of days, like his first 2 days were not very good. And Darth Picker picked up on it. So did you, Renfield. So did a couple of other people who all ended up dying pretty early. That it wasn't just that he picked a bad claim, but he was also kind of weirdly aggressive. People noticed that he was, he'd drop in to sort of make an excuse about why he hadn't claimed yet, in which time he could have made a claim. But then once he had the seer claim, he could basically just sit back and not really do anything. I think he had a much easier time of it than he could have, because the town was so willing to just kind of accept him on face value as the town seer. And so it wasn't until quite late in the game that he actually had to work for it, as the case may be. Because from the very start of the game, he was basically playing Corrupt World Leader. He planned to be a Corrupt World Leader from the start. And you can see that reflected in his gameplay, which I think, I don't know whether it was the right call or not, but overall, I think he didn't have enough pressure on him at most points in the game to really have to display any particularly good play. And when it did happen, he didn't quite rise to the challenge.
I think that if I was really like set on giving him a grade, and while my gut tells me it was like he played kind of a B in my mind for how he, like, what he was faced with challenge wise, and while I'd knock him for like a lot of the things he said day 7 that were unnecessary, and him trickling the Benedict part of his name, that seems like a weird thing to commit to. But I wouldn't dock him most for any of those things. I would dock him for playing Mafia in the first place, when he could have won so much easier down another route, just playing town. So it's one thing to like challenge yourself to a harder victory, and I mean, good for you for wanting to be challenged. But if you lose the game and then you took that challenge, you clearly didn't play as optimally as you could have. Yeah.
I'm actually not even sure that he took it as a challenge, because he didn't know that there was only that JD Cooper was the last Corrupt World Leader. I'm pretty sure that he actually thought that there was another one. So I can definitely see him thinking that his best path to victory was to take down JD Cooper, and in the process confirm his seerness to the town, which would then probably give him the chance to coast through while they took down the last one and win the game that way.
Well, I never thought there would be 6 at any point. I thought that if there were 6, I was going to riot and not do this podcast.
Don't worry.
That's it for grades.
Sweet. Bye.
Yeah.
Did you have any notes for us, Alex? This is your time to shine.
All right. Some fun things, some random things. Civilization. Graham, you mentioned you got inspiration from Civilization. AT brought up in his first post that Poteet might have gotten inspiration from Civilization. So much so that 12 of the 18 characters have been featured in one of the 6 Civilization games.
Mm-hmm.
I won't list them all, but you can find them. They're mostly the obvious one. Ashoka the Great was the weird one. That was in Civ 4.
Yes, wasn't in the Civ game.
And Louis the
That's the only
14th
reason.
was in Civ 2.
Only reason I knew who Ashoka was because of Civ. So.
You guys are trying about aid. I have some aid stats. So you gave the tribunal 127 aid to distribute over the 6 days. I didn't count day 7.
Okay.
Of those days, we gave out 12 aid to corrupt world leaders. 12 of
That's
127. Now, that is not taking into account their partner's aid, so they would have been inflated a little bit to their partner, but I was in charge of the aid days 1 through 4, I think, and we gave out 12. So
that's actually interesting.
That's really impressive.
That is really good.
Way to pat yourself on the back.
I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice in real time that it was that good.
We were good. Day 1, we just gave everyone aid. Day 2, we got a little more strict, and then day 3 on, we were like, okay. I was like, I'm not giving aid to anyone I don't think is on the tribunal, which is why, Kyle, you got left out. So, talking about rules, and how Kyle's saying you should always read the rules. Albril brought this up in Bride of Raptor Zone, saying, "Hey, there's no town win con in the rules," and no one really took him seriously on it. And maybe if people had, they would have noticed that. Oh, wait a minute. There's no town win con in the rules.
Read my rules.
Shoot. I didn't.
We talked about potential claims. My backup claim to Joan of Arc, the one I was debating with, was Charlemagne. He was also related to France, so I wanted to try to keep it close to France, so when I had to come clean, it would be more obvious.
We never talked about this, but Maddie's claim I thought was like the most dubious of all the town ones. Why did you pick that one?
He was
that character.
Louis the 14th was in Civilization 2.
Yeah, he's in a Civ game.
Okay.
He seemed unremarkable, yeah.
Yeah, he did some things.
He wasn't Fear the Pika's 18-sentence Pope Wikipedia page. That was ridiculous.
Pope Benedict in there.
See, I thought that was kind of...
Not even the best Pope Benedict.
It's 18 cents if you don't pull down any of the tabs. It's actually quite long if you pull down some of the tabs.
Compared to every other character, that was by far the shortest history in Wikipedia. I know you can't lynch someone on that, but I thought it became obvious that Poteet poached Wikipedia summaries, and I have my Excel document because I make a document with all the players, with abilities, names, blah blah blah. You saw this document, Kyle. I have a column for does the wiki make sense with their claim? I was matching. What else do I got? Manny's list, 6. I don't think we said the stats, but 6 of the bottom 7 were liars. Darth Pika was the one truth teller.
Maddie.
I was the 6th one who was town. I could not find a Mafia where the priest healed day 1. I looked all the way back to Mafia 4. I couldn't find 1 through 3. There were games where there were no roll flips on day 2, but a lot of those games don't have like action logs or anything, so I couldn't. And honestly, there are a lot of weird mechanics back then, so I couldn't tell if the non-roll flip was due to a priest. Fun note I came across.
It is fun
Mafia
to go
4
back and look at those ones.
I do. Yeah, it was fun because I looked at Mafia 4, run by Master Mukau. It had 19 players sign up, respectable. It was 34 pages long. The entire game. It went 7 days.
Entire game?
It went 7 days.
Yep.
It's 34 pages long. You can go look at it.
That was like half of the in real life last day of phase 2 in this game.
Yep.
At this point, like,
Oh,
sign-ups are longer than that.
People
And
posted
people
a
still
lot
say
less.
like so and so skating by in these games.
Yeah, I brought it up in that Mafia meta post I made after the last, I don't know, a few games ago. That yeah, back in the older games, there was not the level of activity expected that we do now. It was perfectly fine to post once every real life
more.
day.
Kyle, I don't know. I think, was Mafia 7 your first game? That seemed to be the game where it picked up that had 100+ pages. Because I think like Mafia 5 was like 60 pages, and yeah, right around that time it picked up. What else do I got? I got another note. Oh, this one is about me. I like to, each game I'll try to do a fun, like, AT posts a lot note. AT had 257 posts in his 2 days of posting. He was on the forum. Me, Raptor Zone, has 128 total posts. That's all posts. That's out of game posts as well. I've played
That's
in
half.
I think I've played in 4 Mafia games. So
Wow.
just, fun facts all around.
AT's got a lot of free time.
Yep.
I've
got
got
a
a
lot
lot of
to
free
say.
time too, but I don't
I know
really
you do.
post.
You're
Let the
just
record
barely
show.
scratching the surface.
Let the record show. Don't post a lot. You get A's. It's the Raptor Zone proven strategy.
What did we do last game? Kyle, did we give him an A last game too?
The Pika Bros gave me an A.
Oh my gosh, straight A's.
I know. And now here I am sitting out Kyle's game.
Blowing his chance at Player of the Year.
It's like I'm
Oh my
protecting my
gosh.
percentage. No, I won't be a nominee. That is
Oh, I don't know about
that is it for my notes.
All right. Then we've only got a couple more segments. I would like to give us the opportunity to throw out some noms for the Scummies. If you got any player awards you want to hand out, I have some posts, but that's it.
Player of the year right here, Alex Raptor Zone.
So
Yeah.
would you give out Raptors and Player of the Game then?
Yeah,
Oh, that's
for this
neat.
particular game. Yeah,
Did you,
I
Bori?
don't think that's an award we give out, but
I'd say he played best. However,
Ooh.
unfortunately, all of his best stuff was ignored. So he was the best player of the game. He was not the most impactful
Right.
player of the game.
Right.
But they should have listened to him.
Graham can tell you how frustrated I was about my propaganda being ignored or
Very
misinterpreted.
bad.
on the
Oh,
day.
I was really mad too.
Yeah, if there's two things that I've learned in downplay that are still frustrate to me, like on almost a daily basis. One is that whatever is in the day update post, no one gives a shit. They don't care about the flavor text. They don't care about the roles that got flipped. They don't care why they're there. So no one's reading them. Just, oh, who's dead? Let's talk about what we were talking about at the end of the last day now. So there's that. And the other thing, I forgot to bring this up earlier, is that they still refuse to whittle down the list of players who could be Mafia. They still instead focus on, I think these 2 or 3 people are sus, not who can we determine are not sus at all, which I think is the right way to play. I don't know.
This is how I play. I play with a process of elimination list. Like,
And yeah, sometimes
And then I
you're
won.
gonna be wrong, and like I was about Fear the Pika on the day that I went out. But more information can come out, and you can take those people off that list. So I'd like to see that change in the future. But Do we have any other noms you wanna throw out? Bori, did you have anybody?
Um, I really liked a lot of Johnny's posts, but I haven't gone through it well enough to pick out specific ones that I would nominate, but I would nominate a lot of his.
Based on his
Um,
grade alone, he's in newbie of the year contention.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Um, is he the only newbie this year? No, there was Jared who didn't end
well,
up
he
playing.
hasn't. He never posted. And then there was Atarian's wife,
Anthrax.
Sloppy Toes.
Oh, yeah.
Anthrax.
Sloppy Toes was last year.
Yeah, that was last year.
Anthrax.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
Sloppy,
the other Australian.
Sloppy was last year. You're right. I had
Well,
Mukau's Obama as worst bluff. I don't know that it's going to be the
Oh,
worst bluff
yeah.
of the year, but I think it's definitely could be deserves to be nominated.
I'd agree with that.
And then I would nominate Aid and the Tribunal as a potential mechanic of the year too.
Oh, actually, Alabrel had a post like day one where he pegged like 2 of the corrupt world leaders. So that would work for blind
Oh, yeah.
scum
Scum
hunt.
We could. So we got
Um,
Superstar FTP. That would be like Scum Hunt of the year, maybe. What did we say? Play of the year?
yeah.
Probably
And
nominee.
the topic you have. What do you have it called? I think you just have it.
And then post of the year, I have maybe 2 nominees. Was the Maddie Stacks. I just want Town to win so that Poteet and Renfield don't berate us on the podcast.
yeah, that one's a
And-
clear favorite from this one.
And then I also really enjoyed. It's more of a visual medium, but the meme that Alabrel made
Yes.
of the 4 guys. It's like me
The
and the
4
boys going
Spider-Man
to a
villains.
Yeah.
That was a good
I
post.
love that
yeah.
one.
The only downfall is he had Awast on it.
Right. It's fine. They still got the job done.
Yeah, we didn't
I
even
had a
talk
couple
about
other
the
posts.
crazy town council nomination. That was so ridiculous. The town,
town wanted to make a
Superstars
government-
town council. He wanted to make a government within the government. Like it was.
Oh, I thought that was so dumb. I was like,
it was
I will
so
not be a
dumb.
part of this.
I didn't
Yeah.
even acknowledge it.
A couple of posts I picked out where Absol Trainer said the perfect signature quote doesn't exist. Darth Pika, I am one of the worst players in the game. Which, of course, he took out of context because Darth Pika's quote goes on to say more after that. But it was really
That's
good.
pretty good.
There
AWAS.
was
Sorry, I have 2 more, and then I'll let you go. AWAS had one where he said, "Vote Fear the Pika. There's literally nothing more corrupt than the Catholic Church, right, Cran?" And then I had one. Darth Pika said Absol Trainer was the right Lynch based on play, and I said, "Jesus fucking Christ, no, he wasn't. Admit when you're wrong, or you'll always be a meme."
I had that one as well.
Bori, do you have some posts?
I do. There was where is it? There was one that made me tempted to change my signature, but I can't remember which one it was. I'll find it later.
Show notes.
This one is just a personal favorite. It's not a real nominee, but I liked Sharp on All Accounts by the Zonester. That was from Kyle. And then this is another one by Kyle. The greatest burden to the town this game will be trying to drag Deadweight Hawk, if he turns out to be town, to the finish line.
I had that one too, but I didn't want to toot my own horn with that one.
Little prophecy right there.
This isn't a real post, but I enjoyed the Maddie writing in the style of a work email. I love
what?
that when Maddie said from now on all his posts would be in the style of a work email. And then he would be like, "Dear so and so."
That was really good.
That was so good. I
It was
found
only
it,
a
by the
couple
way.
pages, but I really enjoyed the work email style.
Go ahead, Bori.
It was seeing the Pikabros fight is literally the scene of the two Pikachu from the first Pokemon movie slap each other back and forth, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
That was good.
All
There's a
right.
lot of good quotes.
Yeah, there were a lot this game.
We're getting to the point where we're ready to wrap up, but I would be remiss if I didn't plug, tease, advertise the next big Mafia game coming to Hey Trainer. That would be Hey Trainer XXIII Turnabout Karma, all about an original story taking place in the Ace Attorney universe. And I don't want to discuss the game. I don't want you guys to speculate, but our own Bori and Poteet are going to be playing in that game. Are you guys excited?
I'm gonna
Yeah.
win.
Do you have, without talking about the characters themselves, or what do you want to give maybe a thought about role assignments being public before the game?
I'm really interested to see how it pans out. It'll be different, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think it would have happened anyway. Obviously, this is you're confirming it. Your mod confirming the name claim, but I'm more curious as to what you did because the next logical step is everybody role claim, and I don't think it's going to be that easy.
No.
Too
So I'm
soon to
curious
tell.
what you did. Yeah,
This is Renfield we're talking about, who made a game where everyone was both Mafia and Town at the same time.
hmm
I think you'll be pleased to find out what happens day one. But enough
Ooh,
about
excellent.
that.
I'll be
It's time
rooting
to go
for
to
Town.
our- You're going to be rooting for Town.
I will
Yeah.
be
You
rooting.
forgot
I am always Town at heart.
Me too.
Kyle, you forgot the biggest grade. What do you give the game? We just did.
I give it a B.
I take it.
It's hard for me to get over the feeling of how things could have gone very far one way or the other. That variance feeling that I got from the mechanics. So other than that, I like the mechanics in this one a lot more than I did in Planets. So
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Continue.
All right, it's Moments of Zen. This is where we wind down the podcast by putting the deception aside and instead revealing the truth about what's happening in our everyday lives. Someone want to volunteer to go first?
I can go.
I heard
first.
Alex wanted to.
Yeah, mine won't be that long. Today, there's been a lot of crappy stuff in my life going on. That's not really moment of zen. Today, the minor league baseball season was canceled officially. I work in minor league baseball, so that sucks. But this corner has just turned into me bragging about my video games. Last time I talked about some new shiny Pokemon I've got, so I've just become a shiny hunter. I have 6 new shiny Pokemon to add since last podcast.
I remember
That's
back in
impressive.
my day, shiny Pokemon were hard to come by. I remember back in my day, you found a shiny Pokemon before I found one, and I was pissed because
This
of
is
how
true.
many more hours of Pokemon I played in my life to that point than you.
Well, I'm just going to make you even more jealous, Kyle. There's Weedle Day. Everyone got that one. That's fine. Same day as the shiny Weedle Day and Go. I hatched a shiny Mimikyu. That was cool.
You got a Scorpie, didn't you?
Huh?
You got a Scorpie, didn't you?
A Scorpie?
Scorpie, he evolves into Drapion.
Skaroopy?
Oh, Skorupi. You got a Skorupi. I don't have a Skorupi.
I thought you were about to say that. I thought you were going to put a wet blanket on my shiny Scorpie.
Oh, no. You got that. I don't have one of those.
Okay.
I caught a shiny Lycanroc from a raid den. I caught a shiny Sneasel in Go. That was my second one. I, of course, got the free Zaora this week, and then I hatched a shiny hidden ability Grookey. That's it. Great,
Congratulations.
great shiny.
I'm actually really tempted to boot up the old Showdown and play some games because I'm really excited about all the new move tutor moves.
Ooh. Well, just go
If you
purchase a
if you remove
Switch and
Pokemon Go, if you remove Pokemon Go, I've never encountered a shiny Pokemon in any Pokemon games.
Whoa, that's so sad.
I know, it's pretty sad.
I didn't for a long time. I didn't until what was my first? I think my first one was in like Pokemon X. So yeah, it was
Took
a
you a
long
while
time.
too.
Yeah, that sounds right. My first one was in Fire Red or Leaf Green. It was a Sparrow. I
Wow,
still
running
have it.
hot much?
He's in my home.
I was there when
My
he
first
found
one-
it too.
It happened at musical practice, yes.
My first one was, I think, in silver.
Wow.
There were shinies in
found-
silver?
Bori wins.
Yeah.
That was the first gen with
It was
silver.
it was a ponyta.
Yeah. Oh.
Lucky
That's a-
you.
that's
Oh,
a good
or maybe
shiny.
it was Soul Silver. One of the two. I can't remember.
It's still much earlier than me. AK never. Kyle,
But
what's your
then-
moment is then over there?
Okay. So Kate and I got ice cream yesterday. Went to a little mom and pop, just walked in, got a scoop of ice cream, got out.
Ready for this, uh-huh.
It really has nothing to do with what happened yesterday. It just has to do with the conversation we had about ice cream afterward. So
Okay.
I guess I would be remiss if I did not say what a black cherry ice cream I got from this place. Every single bite, there was another cherry in it. I'd never been so impressed with a black cherry ice cream.
Plug the place. What's their name?
I don't remember.
Oh my gosh. So memorable.
It was good though. Anyway,
Okay.
so I was reminiscing about ice cream, and I decided to tell Kate about how I used to eat ice cream. So I was like an anti-cone person as a child. I had to have it in a bowl, and so I get my 4 or 5 scoops, like big hearty scoops of ice cream in there. I've always liked softer ice cream, so it'd be like vanilla or butter pecan or mint chip, not usually chocolate or anything like that. So I get my bowl with my scoops, and then I'd caramel drizzle, chocolate drizzle, get maybe some sprinkles on there, maybe a cherry on top, maybe even make it a banana boat, get a slice of banana in there now and then. But what I like to do was I'd sit down with my ice cream and I'd start stirring, and I might stir for 20 minutes until it was a soup.
Until it's milkshake.
Yeah. So I wouldn't start eating my ice cream until I could drink it. So I was telling Kate, I wonder if there are other kids like that. Maybe there are even kids like that now who really what they want isn't an ice cream, but a dairy soup. And so what if I started, entrepreneuring this idea of dairy soup?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. I will be honest with you before you continue. I do this still sometimes. Not all the time when I have ice cream, but sometimes. But I don't stir. I kind of just mash it down with my spoon.
Mhm.
And I get it's like a milkshake consistency. Are you telling me you go past the milkshake consistency to almost a watery
I
consistency?
would as a child, yes. Now, what I do now is I eat it,
That is terrible.
is I don't mash it. I don't stir it anymore. I just microwave it for 15 seconds.
That's what I was gonna
No.
bring that up. I was like, I specifically remember you in college microwaving your ice cream.
Now, I don't microwave it enough to melt it outright. I just like to, I like it a little softer. Soften it up.
Okay.
So
I don't think
that's
you're. I don't think
that's
you're
it.
the only
Just
one
so,
who does that.
dairy soup.
Well, I was just about to ask, are you and Kate still together after that conversation?
Yeah, we
too
might
weird.
not have been if I was still having dairy soup, but
Did she admit that has she ever tried that?
no, she was appalled.
Well, have her do it without getting it to the level of soup consistency. That's disgusting.
I mean, at that point, you're
Milkshake.
like just drinking chocolate milk that's really cold.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love a good cold chocolate milk?
I guess.
And maybe with a little caramel at the bottom.
Sure. Then you're taking the bowl, you're tipping it up into your mouth, you're like scraping it with the spoon down your gullet. Just
Don't tempt me with a good time. Bori, do you want to share your moment of Zen?
Expression right now. Yes. So I posted about this on the site as well, but lately my main hobby has basically been Skyrim fan fiction, you could say. So there's a mod which lets you keep a journal in the game. And given how popular Skyrim like roleplay and immersion mods and playthroughs are, people really like using this. And a little while ago, I started a Discord server, which is basically a bunch of people who are doing that, and we post our journal entries or stories based on the journal entries to tell our nice little roleplay stories. And it's been really nice and fun, and I've got this really long bard playthrough going where it's like 150 hours or so in game and nearly 60,000 words of journal written about this bard. And just the other day, she had her first kiss with a sexy innkeeper, and I feel kind of dirty now because I've become a romance novel author. But it's been really fun.
Hey,
it was very tasteful.
That's how that vampire lady got famous. She turned her fan fiction into a smut.
50 Shades of Grey lady.
Yep.
Now all you do is put a fantasy skin on it.
I found them on Reddit, on the Skyrim mods subreddit.
Find people.
How many of you are there?
So there's about 200 people on the server, which
oh my gosh,
insane.
Wow.
People actually writing stories, it's about 10.
You could have a bigger audience for that podcast than this one.
just act out the diary entries for like 20-minute podcasts, and
you could even have people like submit the episodes to you, and you could like not even have to record them together.
Oh man, that'd be really cool. One of the people on there actually streams their playthrough, and so like most days I watch them play Skyrim just in the background while I'm doing my own stuff.
Do you have to be a bard in the game to do this?
You can be whatever you want.
Okay.
Most people do other things, but I'm a bard in mine. So
that your story reminded me of Alex when we used to do those Nuzlocke diaries. We had to like write a story about our Nuzlocke run.
Yes.
Did you guys read the webcomics?
Yeah.
Yes.
We're thinking
You'll never catch Kyle playing 150 hours of Skyrim, though. Kyle, share your video game hot take of how you don't like open world games.
They're so overrated. They're mostly empty. They don't contribute to narrative. It's like, oh, choose your own story. Has anyone ever liked a choose your own story book? Yeah, they're terrible.
This entire Discord server likes to choose their own story.
No, they're writing a story. They're not piecing together little mini quests in whatever order they want. Oh, it's so innovative. No, they're mostly empty. They take away from actually, like, there are lazy ways of saying, like, oh, we couldn't think of anything unique to do this time. Put an open world segment. It was easily the worst part of The Last of Us 2 was the open world segments.
What about like the Rockstar games like Red Dead and
like Red? No, he said no.
But Red Dead has a great story along with the open world.
I tried to tell him.
It does not interest me at all.
Have you watched a playthrough of the story?
I've watched playthroughs of other open world games, and
Well, you should
so
watch Red
I
Dead.
can't. I think thematically Red Dead wouldn't work for me. I don't really care about the Wild West.
Gotcha.
How about Fallout?
I've watched some of a Fallout game and not liked it.
Have you
Open
seen
world's
the
not for
new?
everyone.
Have you heard about this new game coming out later this year called Stray, Kyle? Where
I
you
have
are
heard
a
about it,
detective
yeah.
cat.
You're
Yeah.
a little kitten.
And
Is
you have a little-
IGN?
you have a little backpack, and you're a cat.
I don't
It's
think
like a
there's
World
anything
of
wrong with
Robots,
liking narrative storytelling.
Nobody's saying that there's
too.
anything
No,
wrong with
no.
That's my
I'm just saying
preference.
there are. I'm trying to say there are open world games with narrative stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
And I
I
think
feel like you're
largely
putting all
most of them
open
don't
world
do it right.
games in a box.
I think it's fair to say, generally speaking, they're not as good at telling a concise story.
Well, if you want it
Yes,
concise,
you're right,
that's
because
a
you're
whole
not
other thing.
railroaded throughout the game.
It's much harder to tell a story in 150 hours than it is in 30.
This is a podcast all in itself.
We're off the rails.
Yeah, I should not have brought this up.
Brought
What
this
is
on
your
yourself.
moment of zen?
So I don't know if it's necessarily a moment of zen, but it's a funny moment. Unfortunately, I wasn't here, so I just have second-hand knowledge of it. I was working, but my wife was outside with our children, and we're planting something or whatnot. And my middle child, my 3-year-old son, very animated, went up to her and was like, "Mommy, I have to go inside and go potty." And she was like, "Okay, go ahead." And so he walked inside, and she said about 15 seconds later, she hears, oh no, mommy. So obviously she comes inside and he's standing in the kitchen dining room area, his pants and underwear down, and he's just trying to hold on to this poop that has come out. And he's just sitting there bawling, poop in his hands, and that's it. That's my story.
Poor guy.
You did
Yeah.
tell me that story before, and it was still good the second time.
That's one of my biggest fears. Having to
But
deal
what,
with
not
someone
being able-
else's excrement.
I like hearing someone else's, like my child's.
Yeah. It's sorry, it's a kid. It's okay. It's not like you're dealing with adult size stuff, Kyle.
No, I think it might be worse because I imagine it's. I don't even want to get into the consistency.
You are correct that the consistency is not as stable as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that
On
note,
that note,
thank you for joining us, Bori.
Thank
Yes,
you for
thank you,
having
Bori.
me. It was fun to be here.
So excited you guys are going to be in my game, and I look forward to talking about that on our next Mafia review. But after this is posted, we'll be going back to game reviews for a little while. Thank you for tuning in to the Hidden Roleplay Podcast, and until next time, adios.